Emma Caldwell spent the night before her wedding trying to convince herself she felt calm, but nothing inside her matched the soft glow of the hotel room around her. The city lights outside painted warm patterns on the walls, yet her thoughts kept racing back to the one person she had tried so hard to forget, Noah Bennett. She had a good life now, a kind fiancé waiting to marry her the next day, and a future that looked steady and safe. Still, memories had a way of sneaking in, especially on nights when everything felt too quiet. She sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing the corner of her wedding veil, trying to breathe away the knot in her chest. The room smelled faintly of flowers from the rehearsal dinner. And for a moment she closed her eyes, hoping sleep would finally come. Instead, a sudden knock broke the silence. 3 soft taps. Unusual, polite, but out of place at such a late hour. Her eyes snapped open. She wasn't expecting anyone. The hotel staff had no reason to visit. Her friends were staying on a different floor. Daniel had already told her he wouldn't stop by, wanting her to rest. The knock came again, a little clearer this time, and the sound pulled her to her feet before she even knew she was moving. Her heart picked up speed as she crossed the room, every step feeling louder than the last. When she opened the door, the hallway lights revealed 3 men standing neatly in a row. They weren't threatening, just serious and strangely formal, dressed in clean suits that didn't match the casual hotel atmosphere. They offered small, respectful nods, and one of them stepped slightly forward. "It's Caldwell," he said with a steady, calm voice. "We're here on behalf of Noah Bennett." Emma froze at the name, her breath catching like someone had grabbed it from her lungs. She hadn't heard Noah's name spoken aloud in years, not since the day she decided she needed to move on. Hearing it now, on this night of all nights, felt surreal. The man continued gently. "He asked us to deliver a message. Said it couldn't wait." Emma gripped the edge of the door, unsure whether to shut it or let them speak. "Why would he send you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man didn't hesitate. "He believed you might not open the door for him. He didn't want to disturb you directly, but he said you deserved to hear something before tomorrow." Emma's pulse thudded hard in her ears. Why would Noah reach out now, after everything? She wasn't angry. She had made peace with their past, but the timing felt too sharp. Like someone reopening a wound she thought had healed. Yet the men at her door waited with calm patience, not pushing, simply offering a quiet presence that made it hard to turn them away. One of them reached into his jacket and handed her a simple white envelope. No name written on the outside, no decoration, just a folded piece of paper that suddenly felt heavier than it should. She hesitated, then took it with careful fingers. The men didn't move closer. They simply stepped back slightly, giving her space as if they understood she needed it. Emma stood in the doorway, envelope in hand, her thoughts spinning. Her wedding dress hung inside the room, glowing under the sham, and glowing under the soft lamp, reminding her of the life she was about to begin. Daniel was steady and good, a man she trusted and cared for. But Noah was the part of her story she had never fully closed, the chapter she skipped but never finished. She looked up at the men again. "Is he all right?" she asked, surprised by how shaky her voice sounded. The men exchanged a brief glance, not worrying, but meaningful, as if they had been asked not to say too much. "He's waiting," one of them replied carefully. "But only if you choose to hear him. Hear him, after all these years." Emma felt something shift inside her, a mixture of fear, longing, confusion, and unanswered questions she thought she'd buried. She stepped back slowly, envelope pressed to her chest. The men didn't follow. They simply nodded once, respectful and quiet, then turned toward the elevator, leaving her alone with the thin slip of paper that suddenly carried the weight of her entire past. When she closed the door, the silence felt different, charged, alive, and heavy with something she didn't want to name. Her hands trembled as she looked at the envelope again. A message from the man she once loved. A message delivered on the night before she was supposed to promise her life to someone else. And as her heart pounded harder, she realized that opening it might change everything she thought she knew about the past. And maybe even tomorrow. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the white envelope in her hands, feeling the pulse of her own heartbeat echo in the quiet room. The hotel lights cast a soft glow on the walls, but her mind was racing, tangled between excitement, fear, and the kind of nervous curiosity she hadn't felt in years. The three men had stepped back politely in the hallway, waiting, but she hadn't opened the envelope yet. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper, revealing Noah's familiar handwriting, the loops and slants that brought back memories she thought were long gone. Her eyes skimmed the words, but even before finishing, she could feel the weight of what he had written pressing against her chest. He wasn't asking her to stop the wedding. He wasn't trying to interfere with her life. He was offering something far more fragile, something she hadn't expected, the truth, unfiltered, one last time. The letter was short, simple, but every word carried a depth that made her chest ache. He admitted things he had kept hidden for years, things he had believed would hurt her less if left unsaid. He confessed that he had never stopped caring, that he had loved her through mistakes, distance, and time, and that the reason he hadn't come to her earlier was out of respect for her happiness. But the most striking part of the note wasn't the words themselves, it was the invitation. He had asked her to meet him on the rooftop, to hear him face to face. One last time before she began a new chapter with someone else. Her hands shook. As she read and reread the lines, the reality sinking in. This was Noah, reaching out after years of silence, and she had a choice. A choice to stay in her room, secure in the life she had built, or step into a moment she had thought she would never face again. The envelope slipped slightly from her fingers, and she caught it instinctively, her mind racing faster than she could control. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls were pressing in with the weight of the past. She thought of Daniel, her fiancé, a man she trusted and loved. A man who had shown her stability and kindness in ways Noah never could. But Noah was different. He was the memory of fire and passion, of heartbreak and longing, of unfinished stories that had never fully healed. A quiet sigh escaped her lips, and she glanced toward the hallway. Seeing the three men still standing there, silent, patient, respectful. One of them stepped slightly forward, breaking the tension just enough to remind her they were only messengers. "He said you deserved to hear this," the man said softly, "and he asked us to give you the choice." The words made her pulse spike again. It was no longer just about a letter. It was about a decision that might shape the emotional landscape of her life overnight. Emma rose, pacing the room as her thoughts collided. She imagined the rooftop, the city lights below, the cold air brushing her cheeks, and most of all, the face she had once loved more than anything, waiting silently, patiently, holding a truth she had never known. Could she face him? Could she listen without letting the old feelings rush back, without questioning everything she had planned for tomorrow? Her fingers toyed nervously with the edges of the envelope, crumpling it slightly as if the paper itself could absorb her tension. The thought of Daniel entered her mind again, and she felt a pang of guilt, a sharp reminder that she had promised to build a life with someone else. But the letter had opened something that no promise could erase: a door to honesty, to closure, or perhaps to more. She swallowed hard and let her eyes drift toward the window, imagining the city skyline and the possibility of standing there with Noah, hearing the words that might explain years of silence, choices, and lost chances. Her heart thudded against her rib cage, a steady drum of anticipation and fear. And she realized that in mere moments, the quiet hotel room could transform into a stage for an emotional confrontation, one that might leave her breathless, shaken, and changed forever. She glanced back at the doorway, the three men standing silently, their presence both comforting and weighty. She didn't need them to stay, didn't need anyone but herself to make the choice, but the knowledge that Noah had trusted them to. Bring her this message made the whole scenario feel surreal, almost cinematic. As if her life had paused for this one, fragile, suspended night. Her fingers tightened around the envelope, and she realized she had already made a decision before moving a single step she would go. Not because she wanted to disrupt her wedding plans, not because she wanted to undo the life she had carefully built, but because she needed to know, to see, to hear the truth that had been waiting quietly for years. She didn't know if she would cry or scream or simply stand there stunned, but she felt certain that she had to confront the past even for just one night. She grabbed her coat and slipped her feet into shoes, this sense of urgency building with every movement as if the city itself was holding its breath. The hallway was cold, the carpet soft beneath her steps. The three men following at a respectful distance, guiding her toward the elevator without a word, their silence more powerful than any instructions. The doors closed and the air shifted, carrying her toward the rooftop where Noah waited, a meeting that felt both inevitable and impossible. Charged with the emotions of years, unspoken words, and the fragile hope that some truths could finally find their place before dawn. As the elevator hummed upward, Emma's chest tightened with anticipation. The city lights growing closer through the glass, and she realized that no matter what happened next, this night would stay with her forever. A delicate intersection of past and future, longing and resolve, love and closure. Emma stepped onto the rooftop, the cool night air immediately brushing against her face and carrying the faint hum of the city below. The lights sparkled like scattered stars, but nothing around her mattered as much as the man waiting at the traddy. And the edge, hands tucked into his pockets, shoulders tense in a way she remembered all too well. Noah Bennett turned as she approached, relief washing over his face in a quiet, unguarded moment that made her chest ache. She froze for a heartbeat, unsure how to bridge the years of distance that had stretched between them. But something in the way he looked at her, honest, vulnerable, patient, pulled her forward. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said quietly, his voice low against the night. She bit her lip and whispered back, "I shouldn't have, but I had to." The words felt fragile, carrying all the hesitation and longing that had built up inside her over the years. They stood facing each other, the air between them charged with memories and unspoken feelings, a tension that made the city below fade into a blur. Noah ran a hand through his hair, the motion familiar and grounding, and took a step back to give her space while his eyes never left hers. "I didn't send them to scare you," he admitted softly. "I didn't want to make your night before your wedding about me. I just needed to say what I couldn't before." Emma's hands trembled slightly as she looked at him. Memories of their shared laughter, arguments, and quiet moments flashing through her mind. "Why now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, carrying more weight than any question she could have asked. Noah's gaze softened, and he exhaled slowly, steadying himself. "Because tomorrow I lose the chance forever. I can't go another day without you knowing why I left, why I stayed away, and what I always felt." The honesty in his words hit her like a sudden wave, leaving her heart thumping wildly. She swallowed hard, unable to speak, but her eyes told him everything. She felt confusion, longing, and a painful tug at a piece of her heart she thought she had tucked away. Noah stepped closer, careful not to overwhelm her, his voice gentle but steady. "When I left, it wasn't because I stopped loving you. I thought I was protecting you. I was drowning in my own life, trying to figure out responsibilities, family, mistakes. I believed letting you go was the only way you'd have a chance at a good life." Emma's chest tightened, and a tear threatened to fall. She remembered the nights she had cried silently, wondering why he had left, believing it was something she had done. And now, hearing the truth, it felt like a window had opened in the middle of a storm, letting in light she hadn't realized she needed. "You should have told me," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "I know," he said, his own eyes glistening in the moonlight. "I thought silence was safer, but I was wrong. I was always wrong about how to handle losing you." The wind tugged at her hair, brushing her cheek as she tried to steady herself. and she felt the overwhelming pull of everything she had loved and lost. "I never stopped caring, Emma," he continued, his words deliberate, measured, carrying the weight of years. "Not for a single moment." She blinked rapidly, caught between relief and a heartache she hadn't known could still exist. The city seemed to hush around them, as if the universe had paused to let this moment exist. He looked at her not with expectation, but with a quiet hope that she would understand, that she would hear what he had carried silently for so long. "I don't want to ruin your life, your wedding, or what you have planned," he said, stepping back slightly, hands still in pockets, giving her the room to breathe. "I just needed you to know. You deserve honesty, even if it hurts." Emma's fingers curled slightly, pressing against her coat as though grounding herself in the reality of now. The thought of Daniel, her fiancé, surfaced briefly, reminding her of the life she had promised herself. Yet it didn't diminish the intensity of standing here with Noah. She realized the complexity of love, how it could coexist with past and present, how choices could carry weight beyond understanding. Noah's voice softened further, almost a whisper. "If I didn't say this tonight, I don't know if I could have gone to sleep knowing I left things unsaid. You deserve to know why I was gone, and that I never stopped loving you." Emma's chest tightened again, and she felt tears she hadn't expected threatening to fall. She wanted to speak, but words tangled in her throat, inadequate to express the emotions of years of separation, longing, regret, and love that had never truly disappeared. The rooftop, the city lights, the night air of it, felt like a fragile bubble holding the two of them suspended between past and future. Noah's gaze held hers, steady, unflinching, patient. "You don't have to respond tonight," he said softly. "You don't owe me anything. I just needed you to hear it." Emma blinked, absorbing each word, feeling the truth of it settle in her heart. And in that moment, she understood the depth of what had brought her here, the significance of this quiet confrontation, and the fragile possibility of closure, or perhaps something even more. She looked at him fully for the first time in years, noting the slight tension in his shoulders, the quiet hope in his eyes, the vulnerability that only someone who had truly loved could carry. A gentle shiver ran through her as she realized the power of honesty, how it could heal and hurt at the same time. She took a slow breath, the night wind filling her lungs, grounding her. And for the first time since she stepped onto the rooftop, she felt she was truly present in the moment. Noah gave her space, letting the silence stretch, letting the night carry the weight of unspoken feelings. The tension between them was both heavy and tender, charged with emotions that neither had fully processed before. Emma's mind raced, heart pounding, caught between the past she had loved and the future she had promised herself. And in that suspended moment, she realized the truth was no longer just words on paper, was alive, breathing between them, waiting for her to decide how she would carry it forward. The rooftop held them both in a quiet intimacy, a moment, stretched thin yet profound, as if the world outside had vanished, leaving only the raw, delicate honesty of two people who had loved deeply, separated, and finally found each other again, if only for a night. Emma stood on the rooftop, the city lights below twinkling like 1,000 tiny promises, while her heart raced with the weight of everything Noah had just told her. The air was crisp and carried a quiet energy, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for what she would do next. She wrapped her arms around herself instinctively, not for warmth, but to hold together the emotions threatening to spill over: longing, regret, love, and the ache of missed chances. Noah stood a few feet away, hands relaxed in his pockets, watching her with a mixture of hope and caution, letting her feel safe enough to make the decision that lay heavy between them. "Whatever you choose tomorrow," he said softly, his voice calm but weighted with sincerity, "I'll respect it. I only needed to tell you the truth tonight." Emma looked at him, her chest tightening, her mind a storm of thoughts and memories. She remembered the boy he had been, the man he had grown into, the laughter, the heartbreak, and the quiet nights they had shared in a past life that felt both distant and immediate. And now, in this quiet, suspended moment before dawn, she had a choice that felt impossible yet unavoidable. The truth of his words settled in her heart, mixing with the life she had built with Daniel, the man waiting for her with love and steadiness. She knew that Daniel deserved her full trust, her promise. And yet this encounter was pulling at a part of her she thought she had locked away forever. "Noah," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the soft hum of the city. "Why tonight? Why now?" He exhaled slowly, his shoulders loosening just slightly. "Because I needed to do it before it was too late, before you made vows that I could never interfere with. I didn't want to be selfish, I just wanted honesty, one last truth. For both our sakes." Emma's fingers twitched at her sides, caught between reaching for him and stepping back. Her chest ached with the intensity of it all, the emotions raw and urgent. She had imagined what it would be like to see him again, but she hadn't imagined how heavy, how real, and how tender it would feel. Noah continued, stepping closer, though still leaving space between them, giving her control, showing respect, and carrying the patience of someone who had loved her too long and too deeply to force anything. "I'm not asking you to change anything," he said, voice low and careful. "I'm not asking you to undo your life. I just needed you to know that I never stopped loving you, that I always believed in what we had, even if I wasn't brave enough to stay." Emma blinked, holding back tears, the wind brushing across her face as if urging her to feel everything fully. She realized the magnitude of this moment, how a single night, a single conversation could shift the entire emotional landscape of her he.